Welcome back. Does the 10 people per gathering protocol not apply to members of Parliament? House Speaker Andy Daniel explained that inasmuch as the new protocols require most gatherings have no more than 10 people at any given time, the exception was made for the Parliament sitting not because the rules do not apply to parliamentarians, but because measures were put in place to ensure social distancing. Daniel, however, hinted that perhaps in the future, virtual parliamentary sittings will be held.
One of the health and safety recommendations coming out of a NIMAC meeting held on January 20th, 2021 is the prohibition of all social gatherings, with special exemptions for worship and religious activity where only 25 people are allowed to partake. During Tuesday's sitting of the lower house, Speaker of the House Andy Daniel was questioned as to why so many individuals were allowed to converge at the House of Assembly.
My staff have checked all the SIs related to social distancing and all the other protocols relevant to us. We have changed the layout in the chamber to allow for the maximum social distancing that we can. So in the well of the chamber, we'll have a limited number of members, and we'll use the public gallery through social distancing for the other members. The SI that you're referring to, limiting numbers, whether or not it should have applied to Parliament does not speak to that. But we as a Parliament will do all in our powers to control and keep with whatever provisions, the protocols in terms of social distances that we can put in place.
By allowing the parliamentarians to meet, does that not go in direct contravention with the statutory instrument which prohibits gatherings of 25?
The SI you're referring to refers to social gathering. It does not, in my opinion, refer to the Parliament. I'm not saying Parliament should not observe any of the protocols, but I'm saying the SI that you're referring to, which limits the number of persons in a gathering, refers to social gathering. I would not put it in the same category as a social gathering of persons just congregating. I would say that the SI, believe you me, I would not have allowed Parliament to meet in contravention with any law that covers Parliament.
Previously, Daniel had hinted at the possibility of parliamentary sittings being held virtually. He says that option is still on the table. However, he was unable to see it through due to certain hindrances.
I would love to go virtual. The problem, like everybody else, I'm subject to all the requirements of any restrictions. So let me say something very personal here. I am just 2 days out of quarantine. Not quarantine because I tested positive, but quarantine because I was exposed to someone. So in as much as I would have loved to have this or partially virtual, have been restricted in terms of what I've been able to do for the last 3 weeks.
He says regardless, members of Parliament will be following all protocol inside the House of Assembly. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzalez.
Member of Parliament for Castries South, Dr. Ernest Hilaire, has expressed disappointment in government when it comes to the issue of vaccines. Dr. Hilaire says that a clear-cut rollout date for administering the COVID-19 vaccines has not yet been established, nor is there a plan to vaccinate 70% of the population. Nisha Charles has more in this report.
While the Ministry of Health has received confirmation from the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, of the allocation of 74,400 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, it is still unclear as to the actual rollout date for the vaccines to the St. Lucian populace. The vaccines are expected to be in St. Lucia sometime in February, but its rollout has not yet been cemented as a sensitization campaign must first take place. Outside of Parliament on Tuesday, Dr. Ernest Hilaire said there is still no comprehensive plan for its rollout.
The COVAX arrangement provides vaccines for 20% of the population. How are you going to vaccine the other 80%? What are the arrangements being made? The monies we've borrowed, how much of it can be used to vaccinate, to pay for vaccines? Yesterday, and you can go and send the Times of India, I can even share it with you. It was announced in India that Dominica and Barbados will be given vaccines by the Indian government. So they have used their diplomatic contacts and their reach to get extra vaccines for the people. What has our government been doing? And I think we need to ask them, how will the other 80% of the population be vaccinated?
The assistant principal nursing officer had stated that St. Lucia was not considering acquiring vaccines on the open market and that vaccines would have to be vetted by PAHO and the WHO for them to be considered by St. Lucia. Within the region, Cuba has 2 of its own vaccines in clinical trials. If a Cuban vaccine proves safe and effective, it would become available for purchase in the region through PAHO. Dr. Hilaire said that government must not rule out.
We all know historically the United Workers' Party has never been an ally of favors Cuba in any way. The Central Labour Party was the one who established diplomatic relations, and we've always been standing with Cuba. Of course, they've reached out to Cuba when needed, and they've done it in this instance with the Cuban Health Brigade helping out. And I do hope that if Cuba is making an offer to them, at least for the sake of the people of St. Lucia, they accept it. Of course, once the vaccine is approved by the WHO, because there must be some clear, acceptance of the approval process.
In lieu of any other successful containment and mitigation strategies for the pandemic, COVID-19 vaccines have become the de facto final hope for ending the COVID-19 pandemic. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force has informed that on multiple occasions, minibus drivers have been warned and in some instances stopped because they are flouting protocols by carrying more than 10 passengers. Transport Minister Guy Joseph on Tuesday explained that it is the responsibility of both bus drivers and passengers to ensure that there is adherence to the COVID-19 protocols.
During the period of December 27th to February 4th, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force says it has had to deal with 158 breaches by minibus drivers who refused to comply with the 10-passenger rule. While drivers are being heavily scrutinized by the public and under the hawk eye of the RSLPF, Minister for Transportation Guy Joseph says the adherence to the COVID protocol is shared responsibility and does not fall squarely on the shoulders of drivers.
It's to every St. Lucian to follow the protocol. That includes the passengers themselves, because if you know that the bus capacity is supposed to be 10 and you see there are already 10 persons on the bus, you also have a responsibility to protect yourself. It is not just the bus drivers are coming under tremendous pressure sometimes by the attitude displayed by passengers. They don't want to wear their mask. Even if the sanitizing machines are within the bus, some of them just don't want to follow the protocols. And imagine a driver driving a bus, having to concentrate on the road and having to pay attention to the passengers in the bus, whether they are going to wear a mask. It is a matter where all of us must take our own responsibility.
Drivers from the onset of the pandemic have been clamoring for assistance from the government to help cushion the fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic on their trade. Joseph says negotiations are ongoing with the sector to see what can be done.
We are in constant dialogue with the National Council on Public Transport. And whenever there is something to be disclosed, it's an ongoing dialogue. Things change every day in the sector. So, yes, we are in constant dialogue with them in terms of, and they are doing their own dialogue with the Ministry of Health also.
Joseph says, as much as he understands that the pandemic affected the livelihoods of those in the transportation sector, the situation with COVID-19 continues to be very fluid. Therefore, no snap decisions can be made when addressing it. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
Stay with us. There's more news after the break.